Hi, this is Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Dominion. Dominion is the granddaddy of all deck building games, and Dominion has a lot of great things about it, but it has one specific thing about it that I think has a profound impact on all deck builders that followed. And I'm glad that Vaccarino figured it out for Dominion, because we may not have gotten to the level of quality of deck building games for quite a while if he hadn't figured this out. The thing that I love the most, the mechanism that I love the most about Dominion, is that you draw your hand at the end of your turn, not at the beginning of your turn. And I think this makes a huge difference in the game, because if you were drawing all 5 cards to form your hand at the beginning of your turn, you would basically, you'd have a lot of downtime, because you would just sit around watching other players take their turns without any knowledge of what you could do. And B, you wouldn't be able to plan ahead at all, and so the game would take probably at least three times as long, I think, because you would have to wait until your own turn to actually decide what you're going to do, instead of looking at your hand and thinking about what you're going to do in advance. I think that has a huge impact on the game. I think, there are some slight downsides to it, because you're so paying attention to your own hand that you may not pay as much attention to what other people are doing. That can happen, but I think normally when I play Dominion, I glance at my hand, I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, especially since the money in my hand is limited, or is limiting me to only a few cards that I can purchase on the table. So it doesn't take long to make that decision, and then I can kind of tune in and out of what other players are doing on their turns. I think this is brilliant. Now it does lead, because I like this mechanism so much, it does lead to some, I guess there are some players who like to play Dominion and like to string together a lot of actions in a row, and their turns take a long time, and they can't plan ahead very much on those turns, especially if they're stringing together actions and cards that they're drawing mid-turn. So that does get in the way a little bit. I prefer to play Dominion with people who don't do that all that much, but I understand that sometimes that becomes the optimal strategy, and it's interesting to string together a lot of actions. But at heart, I love that the mechanism is there in general, so that people can plan ahead on their turn. Yeah, this is my favorite mechanism. I am so glad that Vaccarino figured it out for deck builders. And I'm curious, beyond deck building, are there any games where there's a specific mechanism built into it that really helps you plan ahead your turn while other people are taking their turns, to cut down on downtime when it's not your turn, so you have something to think about, and downtime for the other players when it gets to you, because you can take your turn pretty quickly by the time it gets to you, since you've already been able to make that decision. And conversely, although I don't want to go into negative stuff in the comments, because of clever mechanisms like this, it's even more abundantly clear when I play games that don't have mechanisms like this, where you really, it feels unfortunate to me that I can't plan ahead on my turn, because I'm waiting for all the other things to happen before I can take that turn. I think sometimes there's some good player interactions that happen between turns that prevent you from fully planning ahead, but sometimes you have no information going into your turn. Actually, I'll list an example, because there is one game that I really enjoy, but I don't think this aspect goes over all that well. That game is Alien Frontiers. Alien Frontiers is a great game, but you don't roll your dice until it's your turn. And so you don't know what you're going to roll. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of options, and often the roll will closely dictate what you can do. But I would much prefer, and it doesn't even work, there's no fix for Alien Frontiers to do this. You can't fix this, because it's built into the game. But I would much prefer that if you would take back your dice at the end of your turn, roll them, and then know going into your next turn what you can do. This is something I kind of did with Euphoria. You take dice off the board, you roll them when you take them off, and so then if the number even matters, when it gets around to your turn, you can have planned ahead and know what you're going to do. Anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but this is such a big focus of mine when I design games, that players can plan ahead for their turns, and then take their turns pretty quickly, so that not everyone else is sitting around waiting for them to take their turns. Tell me if you have any games like that where you love that you can plan ahead, and what the game designer did to enable that functionality. Thanks.